All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Finding Good Franchises show, the show for the courageous people who are meant for more and are willing to do something about it. This is the place for you to find good franchises. So, on today's show, I wanted to talk about franchises that people don't usually think about. And the reason why this topic came to mind is because one of the things that we hear most often from franchise buyers is as they're getting to ready to sign a franchise agreement is, wow, I'm so glad I met you because I never would have found this opportunity on my own. And it's absolutely perfect for me and I can't wait to get started. And of course, we're paraphrasing the words there, but that's kind of the general idea. They never pictured themselves in that franchise or that industry prior to, but they find it going through the process. And we're not bringing this up just to toot our own horn to say we're so good at this, even though we are, but we're bringing it up really to illustrate the point that I want you to kind of take to heart that as you start your exploration, to just keep an open mind, because as you go through the process, you'll find that sometimes the most unlikely scenario or business is actually the right fit for you. And typically, as we start going through this exploration process for franchise opportunities, we oftentimes hear people that, what do? They want to get started looking. And so they go online and they start researching online, and they're going through all these search engines and lead portal sites to research franchises on their own. That's how we've become accustomed to buying things in this marketplace. And so that's what people do. And they'll go through and they'll read all of this sales and marketing material and, find interest in some of the franchises. And then they request information from them. And they might end up on a lot of different franchisors' lists to call and reach out to. And so they may not be expecting so many calls, but then they end up getting a lot of them. We hear that all the time. But a lot of times people will, as they're going through, they're thinking about what franchise they would enjoy, right? So they'll think of it like, I really like going to play golf. So what kind of golf franchises are there out there? Or they'll say, I'm really good at teaching. I want to look at a teaching franchise. Or maybe they'll say they like a product. I really like ice cream and I love eating ice cream. So then they go into a franchise that has that. Or maybe it's like a hot industry where they're seeing a lot of activity or buzz around a particular industry like home health. And so that all sounds like a reasonable approach, because going through the internet, it's great. You can find out a lot of information on there. So what's really the problem with that? Well, the problem is that by simply looking at these multitude of lists out there of different franchises, then they end up looking for systems that they're only really understanding the sales and marketing material. They're not doing a deeper dive. And they also don't find franchises that actually represent what might truly be the best fit for them and where they would be the most successful, because that kind of information isn't on the main pages of the internet. You have to actually dig deeper for that kind of information. And it's really pretty difficult for people to tell whether or not they're going to be a good fit for a particular franchise that's out there. And like, they need to understand things like, what are they going to do day to day? What are the things that they're going to experience? Are they going to be working what kind of hours? What kind of role are they going to have? Are they working behind a counter, or are they more in a managerial position? What is that owner's function day to day? And they also need to understand financials, like how much money are they actually going to be able to make with that franchise? And what would their life look like as part of that system? Do they really fit with the culture and the goals of that franchise system? Just like if you were going to get a job, you need to make sure you're culturally and have a values alignment with those franchises as well. And so usually someone who's considering business ownership, that's a part of the consideration that they tend to neglect are some of those specific details about culture and fit. They're not necessarily thinking about the kind of lifestyle that they can get. They just automatically assume that because it's a franchise, it's going to be good. And we've just seen that it's a bit more complicated than that. And it does take more effort. So, we'll watch people who go through countless hours of research on different opportunities that they found online, but they never really find that good business fit for their lifestyle or their finances. And so they get stuck in this hunt of always looking for the franchise, and they focus on what the franchise does, not what the business can do for them. And so if you've ever heard of the author, he's famous, Stephen Covey, he says, begin with the end in mind. And we really take that philosophy to heart, that you want to find a business that is going to get you the life that you want, that is going to be the vehicle that gets you to that end point, whatever that is for you. So I want to share a little story about candidates that we were working with. And they basically came to our office, and it was a husband and wife. And what they were saying is that they didn't really know what franchise to look for. And we often hear that as well. But Todd, he was a successful project manager. He was worked at a computer company, and he had a good salary. He was making a good living, was supporting the family. But he was really worried about layoffs because he kept seeing like rounds and rounds of layoffs go through his company. And they had just had their second child actually enter kindergarten. And so Debbie, she was, wanting to do something part-time and really wanting to be available for the kids after school. So when they got home, she wanted to be there. She had human resources in her background. She was a manager prior to having children, but she hadn't worked in that in a long time, about 8 years or so. And they were really hoping that they could find something where Debbie could start it part-time. And then if they were able to keep growing it larger and larger, that eventually Todd would be able to leave his job. And then, Debbie would be really good at managing and could build it. And then they could kind of move over together and run the business together full force. They also were nervous about, things that, market turns and market changes. So they were very sensitive to that and concerned about recession, any kind of recession. They wanted something that had a built-in demand that couldn't really easily be replaced with technology. And then finally, they wanted to make sure that Debbie was not responsible for doing any of the selling because she felt like that was a weak spot for her. So you'll never guess the solution. They ended up with a haircutting franchise. And, that's not at all their interest and what they were targeting at first, because none of them had any experience in that at all, other than just going as a customer. But that's kind of the whole point, is that it's not the owner's role to be a hairstylist or to know haircutting. It's the owner's role to manage the business and then manage the marketing, managing the finances, managing those components that make the business run so that they can go to the next location and the next location. And so all of this to say, I'm not suggesting that you go into a haircutting franchise. It may not be a good fit for you, but what I am trying to do is just illustrate the point that even the most unlikely businesses may actually end up being the right fit. And, figuring out the best fit really just starts with looking at you and who you are and what you want the business to produce for you, what you want it to become for you. So we have to look at all kinds of things to help assess that. How much money do you want to invest? Who are you? What are your goals? We have to look at things like how soon do you want to be in business? When do you want to start pulling money out of the business? How long does it take to ramp up? What's going to be required in order for you to be successful? What types of roles? And so, there's a lot of different factors that we have to put into the mix in order to be able to find those franchises that actually end up being the right fit for an individual and what their lifestyle is. Because if you don't find it, then you end up getting into a franchise that ends up not being the lifestyle you want. And that's the opposite, because this is a pretty serious investment. And so we just want to encourage you that as you're going through the process of looking for a franchise, think about the business model. And that business model will tell you what kind of life you can get out of the franchise on the other side. And a lot of times, again, people end up with businesses that they never really thought were an option for them or had considered. And so that's what we really wanted to talk about today. We want to actually go through some of those businesses that you never would have thought before, but end up being one of those great opportunities. So on our panel today, we have Eric Rees. He is the founder of Aspen Law Team, and it's a firm that specializes in franchising and business law. He is actually the 2020-2021 Best Lawyers in America Award recipient. He's a CPA and business advisor, and then also an independent business owner many times over. And we have Amanda Ramirez. She's our national franchise trainer. She is an award-winning franchise broker. She works with international clients and works in the immigration space as well, really doing everything. She was helping people get a visa and come to the US by purchasing a franchise. So doing everything from that whole process to actually building out the locations with them and helping to oversee and manage and run those locations. And so she also helps people to find good franchises. And then I'm Sabrina Wall. I'm the CEO of the Franchise Brokers Association, a national trainer. I've owned or operated 27 different franchise locations within 4 systems, and I'm the 2020 CEO of the Year recipient. All right, so Eric and Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, so, as I was thinking about how do we help people to know what some of those good franchises are that you never would have thought of before. And one of the things that I do in my role is I'll actually go through franchise disclosure documents and I'll read them and I'll look for certain key characteristics in the franchise. And I always think it's a very cool experience with being a broker when you find these disclosure documents and they end up being really impressive. When you stumble upon one that you never really gave much thought or consideration to before, but then when you look at the actual track record and the performance, it becomes like completely illuminated to you. It's like, wow, I had no idea this franchise did that. And I know that's kind of a weird story because these disclosure documents are 300 pages of legalese that people like Eric write, and they're typically not very fun to read. Sorry, Eric.
Except mine.
But when you know what to look for inside of those FDDs and you do find a good one, it pops out and it can be really exciting. So Eric, when you're writing an FDD, how do you know that you found a good one, a good franchise?
Yeah, so a couple things. And I warn the audience, Sabrina warns me, I like to talk about this stuff, right? So first of all, people are a little bit like fish sometimes, right? They go for the shiny objects, and there's nothing wrong with shiny objects unless you end up with a hook in your mouth, I guess. But the thing is that first we need to understand that whatever franchise we buy, we have to have a belief in the value proposition of that business. Otherwise, you're going to fail, right? You have to believe in the value proposition. The couple that Sabrina, you were talking about, I'm sure that there was a point in time when they go, we get it, we get the value proposition, and we can sell this. Maybe not her, but he did. So when I'm helping people buy into a franchise, the first questions that we address is, why this franchise? And the reason why we're asking that is we want to see if the franchisee believes in the value proposition, if they can articulate it, all right? And that's critical for any business success, all right? Then with respect to the FDD itself, unfortunately, and you know this is one of my soapbox moments, unfortunately, a lot of these FDDs are drafted for legal compliance only. And so the attorney who drafts them is thinking about risk protection for the franchisor as opposed to really explaining what the franchise is, all right? When you have an FDD that really explains what the franchise is and gets you excited about it, number one, that's a rarity, okay? But number two, you probably have owners of the franchisor who are pretty active saying, look, we believe in the value proposition. We want to make sure this is not as boring as reading a telephone book or what have you. But here's a good thing. The good thing is that every FDD, no matter which one it is, every FDD has got they have these items in them, which if you're going to buy a franchise, you're going to get familiar with. And there's an item 20, which lists all the franchisees in the system. And Amanda and Sabrina and I are all big, huge proponents of doing your due diligence, right? And that's really where my clients find the diamonds in the rough, is they're talking to these franchisees that are out there and they go, I'll be darned, all right? I can make great money with a business that I may not have thought about before, not the shiny object. And I'll just give you an example, all right? To me, a cleaning franchise, and I'm not suggesting to anyone run out and buy a cleaning franchise. A cleaning franchise post-COVID, all right? You start thinking about this, right? I just had a client buy an existing cleaning franchise out in San Francisco, all right? You got California, all right? You got people still freaking out about COVID, and you've got a cleaning franchise which comes in and disinfects offices, disinfects convenience stores, disinfects commercial bathrooms, right? And my client, who ended up buying an existing unit of that, originally was looking at something so unrelated to that, it was ridiculous, right? But as we sat down and we helped him with his pro forma financial projections, you know, he's looking at me and goes, I'm going to make a fortune, right? And he bought 2 months ago, and he's doing quite well already. And so to your point, Sabrina, there are a lot of diamonds in the rough out there, and don't just go to the shiny object. Nothing wrong with shiny objects, but you know, make sure, as Sabrina said, that it's the right fit for you, because you're going to be doing this a long time and you want the most value that you can for the money that you're going to spend.
Perfect. Well said. So how often do you think you come across diamonds in the rough when you're looking at all these FDDs?
A bunch. I mean, I always, you know, clients will come to me and they'll say, well, this is what I'm looking at. And it won't necessarily jump out to me as being, you know, I'll go, really? You know, you really want to wash windows for a living, right? And there are huge franchises out there that's the main service, is they're washing windows. And then they say, well, you got to understand, they've got all this great software and they've got the great marketing plan, et cetera. And no, I'm not going to wash windows for a living. That I got people to do that, right? So how often do I run across diamonds in the rough? At least half of the deals. I do about 200 deals a year with respect to representing franchisees. About half of them are things that I'm going, wow, I never knew that that was the value proposition of this, that, or the other thing. And that's exciting because they're not all getting into the same thing.
That's so cool. That's awesome. How about you, Amanda? How often do you think you find those diamonds in the rough, the franchises that, people don't really think about, but end up being like super great?
Yeah, so being in this business just makes it so much easier because you have so much experience and you come across so many models that if you were outside of the franchising world, you would never have thought of ever owning one of them. So I will say I come across it all the time and makes me question myself. I want this franchise. Tomorrow, no, I want this one.
Right.
So it's a pretty fun experience, but we know how to analyze them, and we have access to actually looking for businesses that they fit the criteria that the client is looking for. And I think that that's the key. And to Eric's point, and even to your point earlier, it's really funny, but I've helped people that were looking for fitness, food franchises, and they ended up with a mold remediation franchise, and they're doing incredible. So
Yeah, it happens a lot as far as like finding the right one. But I would say for me, when I'm going through FDDs and I'm just looking for ones that really stand out to me, I would say probably 10% of the time I'll find one that just jumps out like, oh my gosh, wow, I had no idea this brand does all of this. And so what I wanted to do is to actually look at a case study of 3 different brands that kind of do that jump out as being one of those diamonds in the rough. And I thought what we could do is we could actually just go through some of the characteristics of the brand. And Amanda, if you don't mind sharing the first one, what are some of the characteristics of the brand? And what we'll do is we'll try to guess what the brand is along the way and what potential industry it might be in. So, Amanda, you want to start?
all right, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so this brand is we call, well, nowadays, before it used to be recession resistance, but now we say recession proof or COVID proof. It's definitely a needs-based product. So we tend to categorize a lot of different franchises. Some of them, it's kind of like, like a fitness brand is more of a want, not a need. But this one is definitely, oh, it's a want.
Health is important. Fitness is important.
Well, it's important, but if you don't do it, it's not, lots of people decide not to do it. There are a lot of other options out there where this service is more of, it helps to protect the material. I don't want to say it. So it helps to protect whatever it is that you have. And if you don't get it, it can actually damage your material thing that you have. So it's also a very low competition, because the interesting thing about this product is that your competition is so much, it's not usually another franchise. It's usually independent people who do not have a lot of business experience, and they know how to do the work, but they don't have the systems in place. They don't know how to scale. They don't know how to actually get enough volume that their actually making money, which kind of brings me to the next point.
Oh, wait. So then that means that when you go into the market and you can kind of take a significant market share and gobble it up, right?
Significant. So there is definitely a cap when business owners are providing this service. They can't scale. And there's another important point is the high margin. So getting to a high margin requires business experience, requires the proper marketing and the proper support. And because those independent business owners don't have the ability to figure that out, and the franchise has figured out a way for you to get the customers and to give a superior service, it makes this model very attractive on a financial and on a growth standpoint.
So
next one,
okay, go ahead.
you can actually keep your job and run this franchise.
Okay, so like anybody who wants to do it part-time, or anybody who's still in corporate America, they're okay. They're going to let you just run the business and still be an employee.
Yeah, so semi-passive, that's what we usually, either semi-passive ownership or passive ownership allows the owner to do that.
Okay.
But in reality, it doesn't always work out. So we have to be careful when you hear that term that the franchise allows for that to happen. This particular one, they actually have current franchisees who are running it semi-passive, and they are doing really well. So because of that, because there is a track record, so there's a proven model already of the franchise doing it over and over again, it's definitely a plus.
So kind of like what Eric was saying about talking to the franchisees. And so you're actually, with this one, you're validating that they're saying semi-passive or part-time, but the franchises are actually doing that.
They're actually doing that.
Okay. I like proof. Proof is good. We're on the right direction here. Okay. So wait, let's assess. The one thing that stuck out to me so far is that you said it protects your assets. You said that it's a unique service. It's basically a fragmented market that lots of other mom and pops, but no real like franchise competitors. So not a lot of organized national competitors. Plus they help with making the calls and the like organized marketing. Okay, so we've got lots of good systems to run the business. We've got the passive, semi-passive option. All right, so this is allowing for a good lifestyle because you got lots of support from the franchise. You've got the passive component, so you can work it as much as you want, or you can, have more of a lifestyle type of arrangement. Okay, I'm sorry, keep going. What else? Is there anything else you want to share about this before we start guessing?
This is a very well-established model. So they have many franchisees that are already up and running. So lots of track record. They have multiple streams of revenue, regular business hours. So it's not a job. It's not a business where you're going to be working after hours or on weekends. So definitely family friendly. It's also a $45 billion industry on an yearly basis. So there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of customers, and I talked about the financials already. So because this is a well-established system, they do have lots of transparency when it comes to disclosing how much franchisees can make. And that's a big one for me.
Yeah. What do they put on there? What do they show? Well, as far as not the numbers, but what do they disclose? Do they show gross? Do they show any net or any expenses?
Yes. So the item 19, which comes from the franchise disclosure document, they're showing the top tier gross revenue for the owner. and then they show the average gross, and then they show the bottom as well. And it's pretty attractive.
Okay, so, and this is a franchise that we never would have thought of. Eric, do you have a guess?
It's a dream franchise. In fact, Amanda, I want you to call me and sell me one. I mean, it's you really hit so many things that I think people are looking for, to be able to maintain your regular job, but to develop an alternative source of revenue. I mean, that's we all three have spoken at length about this privately. It's about developing these multiple sources of revenue for your protection. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's hitting all the high notes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and the coolest thing is I've actually just placed a candidate with this franchise. She is 29 years old,
Yeah.
and very successful in her career, but she doesn't want to leave her job just yet. So she's going to continue working and run this franchise on the side until it's able to ramp up. And then she's going to transition and start working the business full time. When she came to me, she was looking at a food business that was almost $1 million total investment, and this franchise is going to cost her $250,000 all in.
That's a bargain. It's a much different price range. The lower the investment, the lower the risk too. So, okay. So is it a boat franchise? Does it have anything to do with boats?
So the interesting thing is they do provide services for those types of things too.
Okay, so it's outdoor. It has vehicles. So then it would be automotive of some kind.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's Tint World.
Tint World. Okay, so I know Tint World is on franchise grade. They're listed as an A rating, and just because they're FDD, just their track record and performance over time checks out. It's just really one of the higher scores, and there's not a lot of A franchises that get that because they're so strict with the grading at franchise grade. So Tint World, tell me about Tint World. What do they do?
Yeah, so Tint World, so they do have multiple streams of revenue. So when you listen to the name, you think, okay, it is tinting. So they provide car tinting, but they also do other types of, so any type of window tinting, even if it's residential, commercial, and then anything on cars. And when I said that it was needs-based, so when you buy a car, it won't come with tinting unless it's a used vehicle, but most of the time it doesn't last for a very long time. It depends on the company who does it. I've had it done by independent people and it lasted, I mean, not even like a year, and I already had to replace it. So this particular franchise, they offer a very, superior service. It protects your car from winter, from the summer, from all kinds of things. So it's not just for cosmetic. You think that you're tinting your car because you want it to look cool, because you don't want people to see you when you're driving, but in reality, it does protect from the sun. It protects from damaging the inside. So there's lots of other benefits to it. And I would never, I have no interest in cars. I'm not a cars person per se, but what a lot of people don't understand when you're looking at franchises, and you've mentioned this before, Sabrina, it's not about whether you can do the service or even have an interest for the service. It's what the business can do for you, right? So we look at the client's criteria. So what is important for you to achieve? Okay, I want to make money. I want to have regular business hours. I don't want to put in 40 to 50 hours a week into this business. I want to be able to manage the right crew. So maybe my skill sets is I'm a very strong manager. So I've had years of management skills. I'm really good at talking to people. If I believe in the product, I would be comfortable, not even, it's not about cold calling, but it's more of a consultative selling, where somebody's already interested because of the marketing of the franchise. They're coming to you and they want you to just sell it to them. So they're almost like, I want to buy. Can you please just tell me what it is?
Because people want it. It's not like insurance or like,
it's
repairing.
really
It's
not.
like, I want to get this fixed. I want it to look good.
Right. So honestly, all these people are looking for customers. Customers are looking for customer service. They're looking for quality. They're looking for professionalism. And it's very hard to get that with window tinting and those types of businesses. And I hate to say it, but you can't, these business owners, they didn't have the ability to create a robust system. A lot of times they didn't have the capital to be able to actually put all of those systems in place. So they're the ones doing the work, but they're also managing the books. They're also managing their employees. So it's almost like they do it all. But in this scenario, you would be the person driving the business, moving the business forward, and having the right type of people to do the work with the right type of support. So it's a no-brainer that your margins are going to be higher. You're going to have better quality of life because you're not having to actually worry about the work. And right now, it's one thing that we're experiencing post-COVID, which, yes, there's pros and cons, but the job market right now is booming. So you can actually easily find labor for these types of franchises. So there's a lot of ways that you can hire the right people, lots of people looking for work. And what else? And so you're not only, I did mention this, but yeah, you're not only doing work on cars, so you can actually do it in the residential, commercial. So when I said, you can actually do it in planes, you can do it in boats, anything that has a window, you can fix, which is pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah. The other thing I want to add, because I had no idea what franchise you were talking about. I had a client who recently purchased one for the Houston area, and I was impressed at the products and services that they sell. Look, once you get the customer in for a particular product or a particular service, there are a whole host of other things that Tint World does. In fact, it's almost to the point where Tint World is not inclusive enough of everything that they do. My guy is establishing a business, and he's selling everything from tint to car stereo to tires. He's got tires in his location. And it's pretty easy once the client is in to be able to sell them other enhancements for the vehicles. So it's a lot more exciting than perhaps the brand would imply.
Because the brand only says tint, but
Right.
you're doing way more than just
that's right.
Well, it's been around for a long time, so that's probably why it's hard to change your whole brand name. Sure. So it takes some extra clever finagling. All right, so we got one. We have one diamond in the rough. Do you want to do another one? Yes. You gonna guess?
I'm doing it.
No, I'm doing it.
You are? Okay.
Yep, I'm going to do the next one. Okay, so this is a brand that even though COVID hit, they actually have been doing better since COVID. So they were able to adapt in a way that gave the brand more market share, not less. One of the really interesting things about this model, and I think personally one of my favorite things about it, is that it's got recurring regular income that's set up on contracts, but that recurring income actually compounds. So anytime you have a situation like that, you are building almost an annuity stream for your business. And, having operated 4 different types of franchises, the ones that were the easiest to run and gave me the most flexibility, the most peace of mind, were the ones that were set up on these recurring residual income contracts. And if you're coming from a situation where you're, used to a paycheck, used to a salary, that's also an easier transition because you're not, you get set up on contract. So once you get the contract, then you know how much money you're going to get every single month as the contract pays out. So it's much easier to manage the business day to day. And this particular business, they're actually known for extremely high retention rates of their customers. So once they get them, they keep them, and then the next month that they get them, they're getting the previous month plus this one, and it just keeps building up and up. So the longer you're in the business, you're building a larger and larger annuity stream if you're continuing to add new clients and keeping those that you have. And that, when you go to resell, like when begin with the end in mind, annuity-based businesses that have that regular recurring cash flow, they tend to be a bit more clean. So they're easier on a resell to get a good value for and a higher multiple. So meaning that, in a normal resale, maybe they pay 3 to 4 times what the owner's benefit is. So let's say the business makes, would give the owner $200,000, then that multiple, let's say, is 3 to 4 times, which, 600 to 800,000 would be the price of that. So if you're going to sell, you can get typically a higher multiple when you have that recurring kind of annuity component and good cash flow. The next thing that I would say makes this one, a really good brand that a lot of times people don't know about would be that it doesn't have a lot of employee requirements. So even though you can build a very big business and a very big, annuities type stream, the number of employees you manage at your small local office is just a handful. So you're not growing and scaling a huge number of employees as you're growing revenue. And that helps obviously for your margins. One of the other things that I think is really great about this type of business is that it has multiple revenue streams that are set up again on recurring. So you're not just selling one type of product. You have one customer that has, 10 products that you sell those 10 products to that same customer over and over and over. So you have multiple lines, and if they don't want this one this month, then you can market to them next month. So from a marketing perspective, when you have a business like that, it's easier to market because you're not trying to find new clients all the time. You still do a little bit of that, but you're also marketing to your existing clients and continuing to grow your business with them, which creates more sticky clients. They rely on you more, they depend on you more, they have a better relationship with you, and so they tend to stay longer. This particular franchise, they have a call center. So let's say you start your business, the call center will actually begin booking appointments on your behalf for the business. So you're not having to go cold and start from scratch and build every single client on your own. Instead, their call center will call and will go through all that process of getting them booked and scheduled for you or one of your employees to go out and work that. They also have a really large territory. So a lot of franchises, the bigger and bigger they get, the smaller the territory gets and the more restrictive the territory opportunity. So with this one, you get a really good size territory. So you have a lot of room for expansion and growth. And all of that just means scale. It means that you can build something bigger than just a unit franchise. And it's with all of that, it's also got really reasonable working hours. Any guesses so far?
Man, is it home improvement?
No, wrong.
All right, Sabrina, tell us, because I got a couple comments on it.
You have a couple comments on it?
Yeah, I mean, a territory, guys, when you can find a franchise where the franchisor is not so restrictive on territory, that's what perked my ears up, right? Because many times you're going to find that a franchisor sat down and said, well, we could get whatever, 1,000 units out of the United States or 2,000 units out of the United States. And sometimes the territories get a little stingy, which I'm sure Amanda and Sabrina have both seen in the FDDs. But when you say the territory is generous, so long as I'm selling a product or service, which again, I believe in the value proposition, that's really what perks up my ears, because talk about scalability without running into another franchisee right across the fence or right across the way. Like, I'm not going to name names, but we all know on this call that some of these franchises out there are just, they get too crowded because the franchisor has got too ambitious a number in their head, perhaps. So really that's what caught my ear.
Yeah, and that can be a huge problem. We've been burned a few times with franchisors that were just like, they just put them so close, right on top of each other. And it was very, very difficult for those locations. And that, that's a real experience. We lived through that one. So we're a little sensitive
Sure.
to that experience. But yeah, having a good territory with lots of room, lots of ability to expand, and
That's
you're
right.
not going to get on top of another franchisee's toes. That's really helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. Another thing about this particular brand that I think stood out is that they actually list out 13 different types of support meetings that they have with their franchisees on a regular basis. So when you're starting a franchise, you want to make sure that you're getting one that's going to provide the support that you anticipated. And you're going to need a lot of support as a new franchise owner. There's so many things that happen getting you set up and launched and running that business well. And a franchisor needs to be there for you. They need to be available, and they need to be able to help you with a range of different skills that maybe you've never done before or don't know how to do it applied to this business. So some franchises give great support, others don't. And this one, they have strategic planning meetings. So on a regular basis, you actually go through the strategy of how to build out your territory and your business really well. And that those kinds of planning meetings, one, they're always really fun. And two, they help to expand your view of your business and what you can actually accomplish and achieve with it. So those are always really fun. They also have human resources meetings. So they're actually teaching you how to handle and manage the HR component with your employees. Some franchises will shy away from that, but they have meetings where they're actually going through it and helping you to understand how you interact and what you need to do to keep everybody compliant and in accordance with the policy manuals and all of that. They also do public relations, advertising, promotion, campaign management meetings. So they've got the call center, but they're also helping you to do all the other pieces to build your business for the long term with a lot of these different advertising components. And that's a really good thing. So the other thing that stands out about this one is just the type of franchisees. So the owners, the other owners, they typically are people who are, upper level or senior executives. They're high net worth individuals. They typically have a strong management background. So if you are somebody like that, or if you want to be in a peer group with someone like that, then this franchise affords that. And there's a lot to be said for the peer group you associate with in a franchise. If you have good franchisees around you, you learn so much from the franchisees. They're really helpful.
All right, tell us who it is.
All right, I'll tell you. This one is a company called Mint Condition.
Oh.
Mint Condition. So they are a master franchise opportunity in the commercial cleaning space. So what do I mean by masters? That's where the franchise kind of acts like a local division of the corporate franchise. So they are the ones that actually they recruit and they bring in new franchisees in their territory. They then train those franchisees and provide services to those franchisees and help those local franchisees to be successful. And Mint Condition is unique because they actually are green. So they're a green service, even though they do COVID disinfecting and everything, it's also a green service. But then they also, they have their franchise owners, like the local unit franchisee, do the work. They're like small franchisees that want to grow a small business. So they're the ones that are managing the work and active in it. So they have longer retention because they're not trying to have their franchisees build teams. They're trying to help their franchisees add another line of good income as like a secondary business for them. Just a little bit different in that. And then they do a bunch of things to support their franchisees and help them really develop them as business owners, which is very, very cool. And yeah, so they do commercial cleaning. They're set up on the contracts. They go to the offices. The franchisees go to the offices at night and clean the facilities. But the franchisee, like the master franchisee, they work during the day at the office, helping to get those accounts and helping to, run an operations manager to go check accounts and support franchisees in the local area. So it is a cleaning franchise. So a lot of times people wouldn't think that a cleaning franchise can be so good. And Eric, you didn't even know that was the brand I was going to say. And you plugged cleaning franchise early on.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's one of those things, I call it, non-sexy, but it's one of those things that because it's non-sexy, that it doesn't get the headlines sometimes that it should. And, that's another thing that you ought to mention to the listeners, or ought to clarify, and that is, franchising is not a one unit thing, right? You can build, I don't want to say an empire, it's too strong, but you can build a very big business by not just focusing on a single unit. You can buy 2 units, 3 units, 5 units. In this case, it's a master where you are not essentially, you are acting as the franchisor for likely a big portion, whether it's a state or multiple states, et cetera. And so again, just like when we talk about all the opportunities that are out there, and just like when we talk about don't necessarily go for the shiny object, don't also get tunnel vision. Don't just assume that, well, I'm in wherever, Sarasota, so I'm going to buy a franchise for Sarasota. You are permitted, and there are franchises out there which will permit you to think a lot bigger. And so please do that too, because it's the tunnel vision. I think it's the preconceived ideas of what franchising is, which I think will limit you and maybe prevent you from finding, what we're calling the diamond in the rough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very common that people kind of don't realize what's all out there and available to them. That's really cool. All right. So we had 3, but I think we are out of time. So we're going to go ahead and, one more last final thing. And in mint condition, they have an 87.5% retention rate over 3 years of being in business. So that means that we don't do an annual retention rate. We make it really hard. We say 3 years. So they have a really high retention rate because we're doing it over time. And if you did it.
Yeah, that means people are satisfied with it.
Yeah, people are staying with it. They're staying with the system, which is also definitely wonderful. All right. So I just want to leave you with this message to just keep an open mind. Usually people are looking for their ideal life, and they want that more than they want to be a specific product salesperson. So if you are thinking about your business, think of it as the vehicle as a whole, as the business model, and you'll actually be surprised by how many everyday options out there have extraordinary results. So if you'd like to take a look at any franchise, if you are going through this research process, if you'd like to be matched with a broker, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you to find one. If you want to talk about any of these franchises specifically, we can also support you in that. Make sure that you get your questions answered there, and any general questions as well. So you can contact us at here2help@franchise B as in boy, A as in apple.com. Here to help at franchiseba.com. I want to thank everyone on our panel tonight. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Great. Bye.
Bye.